Arion, can you all hear me? Okay. What is the connection between this chapter 15 and chapter 16? Now we are doing chapter 16, but let us understand the connection between these two chapters. In chapter 15, Krishna gave the example to explain about this world. He spoke about a tree, the Ashwata tree. And he mentioned about this tree that the tree has branches on top and branches below. So we discussed that the branches on top mean that Swarga Lokas, the heavenly worlds. And the branches below reflect the Naraka Lokas or the worlds of hell. So now when we come to chapter 16, what Krishna wants to explain that for us to go upwards towards the heavenly lokas and eventually attain moksha, we must have certain divine qualities. What are those divine qualities? In chapter 16, verses 1, 2, and 3, he gave us 26 divine qualities. And we've gone through all these divine qualities in chapter 16. Then he says, if you don't have these divine qualities, if you cultivate the demoniac qualities, which are the demoniac qualities? In verse 4, he gave us 6 demoniac qualities, which we also discuss, like ego, anger, jealousy, etc., etc. So he said, he concluded in chapter 16, verse number 5, okay, chapter 16, verse number 5, divine tendencies are deemed to be for liberation. So the more and more we practice these divine qualities, in verses 1, 2, and 3, the 26 divine qualities, it will be our path to liberation. And demoniacal qualities will lead us to bondage. What bondage? To be repeatedly taking birth and death in this ocean of samsara. That is our bondage. So then he says in verse number 6, Krishna told us in verse number 6, there are 2 types of beings in this world, either the divine or the demoniac. And Krishna says the divine qualities I've already extensively explained to you. 26 qualities I've given you, right? So there's enough for you to understand about divine qualities. But he says, demoniacal qualities I need to speak about more. Why? Because I only gave you 6 demoniacal qualities. But there is much more to tell us about the demoniacal nature. Now, why does Krishna want to spend more time? So more from verses 7 onwards, he will talk about the demoniacal nature of people. Because he wants us to be aware, he wants us to be careful that we do not go down this path, because it will lead us to degradation. And all these divine and demoniac qualities are referring to human beings. So it is not devas or asuras we're talking about. We're talking about human beings who have divine qualities and human beings who have demoniacal qualities. So now we have covered 6 verses. Let us look at verse number 7, where Krishna continues to speak about the demoniacal nature of human beings. So what does he say in verse number 7? He says, these demoniacal people, na vidu, they do not know. What do they not know? So he mentions 2 words here, pravritim and nivritim. You can see in the Sanskrit text in verse 7, pravritim and nivritim. And he says, jana na vidur. Now, the word jana here means the human beings. So he is particularly pointing out to human beings that they should understand these 2 parts very distinctively, pravartim and nivritim. It is not for animals to understand or insects to understand, because even if they, first of all, they can't get knowledge. And even if they have knowledge, they cannot change the type of life they want to lead. Only human beings have a right to choose to change their lives. So he's particularly talking about jana, the human beings. And what type of human beings? He's talking about jana asura, the demoniacal human beings. They are the ones who do not know these two parts. What are these two parts? Pravritim, which means the way of action, how to perform our duties, how to perform our responsibilities, and what is the right way. When we give charity, when we do seva, when we perform our duties and responsibilities, the right way is to consider ourselves as an instrument in the hands of the Lord. So it is not just giving charity. I can give charity, but if I do it with ego, that is not the right way. But if I give charity and consider myself as an instrument in the hands of the Lord, that is the right path of pravritti, right path of action. But the demoniac people, they don't understand all this. They give charity, but they do it with ego. And what about nivritim? Nivritim is the path of renunciation. At some point in our lives, we must understand, as you're so much engaged in action in the early part of your life, there must come a time when you must reduce your activities in the world. So instead of pursuing too much of activities in the world, we reduce them. And what do we do with the extra time? We pursue spiritual knowledge. We spend time reflecting. We spend time reading the scriptures. We spend time in meditation, in silence. So that is a path of nivritim, okay? The path of renunciation, to minimize our contact with the world and to devote that time to spiritual practices. So both paths are very important, pravritim and nivritim. But the Asuric people, they do not know this path of action and the path of renunciation. Okay. Now, this path of action also, if you go back to chapter 3, verse 25, chapter 3, verse 25, which is on page 70. Okay, page 70. So that chapter 3 deals with karma yoga, the path of action. So here in verse 25, Krishna said, as the ignorant act with attachment, they are also doing all their duties and responsibilities, but they are attached to the results of the action. They are doing it with a selfish purpose. So should the wise act without attachment. That is the difference. We may be doing the same duties, but one is acting with attachment, one is acting without attachment, without any expectation, because they've surrendered everything to the Lord. So, who are the people who will, what we call, who are different from this demoniac people? So, in the Mundaka Upanishad, there's a very interesting verse in chapter 2, verse 12. There it is mentioned that who is a wise person? So, there in that verse, it is stated that let a Brahmin, they talk about a Brahmin. Now, who is a Brahmin? We must not think that the Brahmin is somebody who sits in the forest meditating or sits in the cave. Brahmin can be you and I. But what is the definition of a Brahmin? Brahmin is one who leads his or her life with intelligence, with introspection, with knowledge. So he leads an intelligent life. So this verse says, let a Brahmin, what should we do to lead an intelligent life? This verse says, Pariksha Lokan. Pariksha means you should investigate, you should analyze, you should introspect on the Lokan, in this world. What is it that we should introspect? The Mundaka Upanishad says, all the actions that you have been doing. From birth to now, every action that we do, we are pursuing happiness, isn't it not? Nobody does action to pursue sadness. We all do action to pursue happiness. Now, let me ask you a question. When you buy something new, a shirt or a blouse or a house or a car, something new, are you happy or are you content? How many people say you're happy? Are you content? So, can you see the fine difference between happiness and contentment? We think we are content, or are we happy? There is a very vast difference between happiness and contentment. We are happy, but we are not content. Because if we were content, then we will not pursue again another object. So it tells us that we are happy, but that happiness has not given us contentment. So again arises that what we call that the need to search again for temporary happiness again. So here he says we must introspect all the actions that I've been doing. I bought a new car, I bought a new house, I got a nice job, I got a promotion. Yet why am I still not content? So now, how do we understand life? A few methods are given in the scriptures. One, we should analyze our own experiences. Whatever we have gone through from birth to now. Why are we not happy? Number one. Number two, analyze the experience of others. We read about people, we hear about people, we hear about rich people committing suicide, we hear about famous people who go into depression. So even these people who have everything, yet they are not happy. So by our own experience, by understanding the experience of others, and number three, when we read the scriptures warn us against excessively pursuing material and sensualistic desires. So he says this wise person, upon introspection, understands that there must be something beyond the worldly happiness. So what does he do? He seeks knowledge. So the word Vijñārtam comes in this Mundaka Upanishad. Vijñārtam means he wants to now attain some knowledge to understand what is the higher happiness, the true contentment. So what does he do? Where does he get his knowledge? So beautiful word is used in this Mundaka Upanishad. Samit Pani. Samit Pani is dry twigs. So he takes these dry twigs in his hand and he approaches a guru for knowledge. So it's very symbolic. Why take dry twigs in the hand and go and approach a guru? What is the significance of approaching a guru with dry twigs? Guru would say, bring fruit, bring money. Why you bring me these dry twigs and all that? So what is the symbolic significance of that? What is the nature of a dry twig? It burns easily, right? So what is the disciple telling the guru? My mind is like a dry twig. It is ready now, it is thirsty now, it is hungry now for knowledge. I am receptive to that knowledge. So, oh Guru, please impart that knowledge to me. So with dry twigs, he goes to the Guru. Now, he has analyzed the world. So he's not trying to get out of the world because he's disgusted with the world, he's fed up with the world, he is being rejected by the world. No. He is trying to find that real truth, the real happiness. So he's awakened to a higher truth. That is the difference. And the guru also must have two qualities. It is not only the disciple must be ready for knowledge. The two qualities are also mentioned in Bhagavad Gita Chapter 4 verse 34. The very famous verse. Tat vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshina. The guru must have two qualities. Number one, he must be what we call well established. He must know all the scriptures thoroughly. So he studied all the scriptures, the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Geeta, and all that. He must be a thorough master of knowledge. And number two, he must be a realized soul himself. So that is the right guru. But you see, the asuric person, because they are driven by ego, by anger, by greed, they don't want to listen to any advice. They don't want to surrender to anybody and take their advice. And they are driven by only money, power, possession. So they see no value in dharma. Last week we discussed the 4 goals of human life. Do you remember? The Purusharthas. What are the 4 Purusharthas? Dharma, Kama, Artha, and Moksha. So out of these 4 goals, which goal do you think an asuric person is interested in? Kama, which is satisfying selfish desires, and Artha is to accumulate possession. Is he interested in dharma and moksha? No. So dharma and moksha are not important. So if dharma and moksha are not important, then his whole effort, his whole life is spent in trying to pursue or satisfy desires and acquire more possessions. And what other qualities is an asuric person have? He says in verse number 7, na saucham. Na saucham means he has no purity in him. Now, if you recall this quality saucham, in chapter 16, verse 3, Krishna, out of the 26 qualities, he mentions saucham as one of the divine qualities, cleanliness. And this saucham or cleanliness is of two types. One is external cleanliness, wearing clean clothes, living in a clean environment, keeping your house, your area clean. But there is another cleanliness, which is the internal cleanliness, which is what we cultivate in our mind. Do we harbor thoughts of anger, greed, how to hurt people, how to cause problem for people? So you pollute your mind with all this. So that also is very important. But Asuric people, neither do they have internal cleanliness, neither do they have external cleanliness also. So they cultivate all kinds of angry, violent thoughts, etc. That is the nature of Asuric people. Na saucham. Second, he says, na achara. Na achara means they don't possess good conduct. And you can see in the way they use a lot of foul language. They may have very aggressive behavior. They have no respect for their elders. They will insult people. They are very arrogant, very boastful behavior. This is now, as I'm saying all this, I'm sure in your mind you are recalling some people you might have met. Some images of some people are coming into your mind. So you can recognize these people, what kind of behavior they have. And Lord says this is basically asuric demoniacal behavior. Third is na satyam. They are always speaking lies. They use deception, untruth to deceive other people. And you can never take their words, because whatever words they say, there can be lies behind it. Also talking very sweetly in order to influence you also. So this is na satyam. Now the question is, why is it that these demoniac people don't know all these good qualities? They don't know what is the right path of action. After all, if you ask yourself, aren't there so many gurus? There are so many temples. There are so many lectures going on. There are so many scriptures available. Why are these people still, they don't understand what is the right way and the wrong way? So Krishna will explain this in the next verse, number 8. So when we look at verse number 8, before we look at this verse, we must understand that all demoniacal people can be divided into two categories. One is we call Nastika, Nastika, Nastika. Nastika means they do not at all believe in scriptures. They don't believe in God. They don't believe in punyam, papam, heaven, hell. They say this is the only life. You live now, you do whatever you want, you live and die here, that's it. You're not going to come back again. So they are Nastika. They don't believe in divinity, God, etc. But there are demoniacal people who are called Astika, Astika, Astika. They believe in God. They believe in prayers, rituals. But what is the difference? What is the difference? They believe in all. They believe in God. They believe in prayers. They believe in rituals. They believe in heaven and hell. But what is the difference? Sorry? So when they pray, what do they ask for? Do they ask for dharma? Do they ask for moksha? No. They ask for karma and artha. So even in their prayers, they do believe in God, but they are not interested in God. They are using God in order to achieve their worldly ends. So there are two types of what we call asuric people. So why is it that they don't believe in God, or why is it they don't follow the scriptures? This Krishna explains in verse number 8. He says, Te ahu. Te means they. Who are they? These are the demoniacal people. Ahu means they say. This is their attitude whenever anybody asks them anything. What do they say? Jagat asatyam. This world, this Jagat is asatyam. Satyam is truth. Asatyam means false. Now, what do you mean by false? False means they say nobody lives a life of truth. Everybody is cheating one another. Who is actually practicing truth and goodness and humility and all that? There is no truth in this world. And some of them even say, look at Krishna, even he stole butter. So what is wrong if I steal a few dollars? So everything they look at with a very negative attitude. They believe that there's no truth. There is no honesty left in this world. So, in fact, one question which is often asked in spiritual classes is that, we are told that we should eat a vegetarian diet, isn't it? Always you go for spiritual lectures, they say you must eat vegetarian food. Or in Gita, it's called sattvic food. Okay, sattvic food, meaning vegetable, fruits, grains, natural oils, all these are called vegetarian or sattvic foods. Now, what is the purpose of eating vegetarian food? Why should we all eat vegetarian food? What is the effect on us? Calming effect on the mind, right? It's supposed to purify the mind, it's supposed to calm the mind, give you good thoughts. That is what the scriptures say. But have you wondered, you meet vegetarians who have been practicing vegetarianism for 15, 20 years or some from birth. Yet they seem to be the most aggressive, the most angry people, the most egoistic people. Have you not met? So, what is the problem here? They are vegetarian. Eating vegetarian food, they are supposed to have a calm mind, a pure mind, what we call, and good behavior. But they seem to be the most arrogant, the most egoistic, the most people prone to losing temper. So, what is wrong here? What is the problem here? Are the scriptures wrong? So, what is the problem here? Huh? But why are they arrogant? They're eating all vegetarian food. By right, they should be calm, they should be loving, they should be humble, but they are not. I'm not saying all vegetarians, okay, some of them. But it doesn't balance up. So we must understand one thing. When the scriptures say you must eat vegetarian food, you eat vegetarian food, pure food makes the mind pure. But we have 5 senses that intake everything from the world. So it is not only what you eat, what you see, what you hear, what you touch, what you taste. All the 5 senses must intake in pure things. It is not just by eating vegetarian food that you're going to make your mind pure. Yes, it will. But if your 4 other senses are put in the wrong direction, that will also pollute your mind also. So when the scriptures say what you intake is pure, it means through all your 5 senses, not just your 1 sense of taste of eating vegetarian food. So here, these people, these what we call asuric people, they say there's no law of karma because they don't believe there's truth in this world. So you can tell lies, you can do what you want. There is no punyam, there's no papam, there is no heaven, there's no hell. And on top of that, they say the word used in verse number 8, apratishtam. Apratishtam means without a basis. That means what they say is there is no logic in this world. Now, many times you would have seen people questioning. We see people who are robbing, who are cheating, who are lying, who are doing all kinds of evil things, yet we see them getting prosperous and prosperous and prosperous. And then on the other side, you see religious people, spiritual people going to temple and praying, but they seem to be suffering. So they say, what is the basis? How come people who are scheming and lying and stealing, they're getting prosperous? So they say, apratishtam, there is no basis. Where is your punyam? Where is your papam? Okay. So All the scriptures talk about morality, compassion. They don't believe in all this. And then if you point to them about the law of karma, there is a God and all this, what is your next argument? They say in verse number 8, Anishwaram. This world actually there's no God. Who has seen God? Have you seen God? Nobody has seen God. So they don't believe the existence of this creator. So, but the strange thing is, although they don't believe in God, they don't believe in law of karma and all this punyam papam, when is it that these people turn to God? Huh? When they face so much of problems, so much of difficulties in their life, and they try everything else and nothing saves them, then they turn to the Creator, then they turn to God. And how does God respond to all the sinners? When these sinners, when they decide to turn their direction to God, how does God respond to them? Does He reject them? Does He punish them? So, beautifully, Krishna is mentioned in chapter 9, verse 29 and 30. We go back to chapter 9, verse 29 and 30. This is how God responds to those people who turn towards divinity. Page 176. He says in verse 29, chapter 9, I am equally present in all beings, there is none hateful or dear to me. But those who worship me with devotion, they are in me and I am in them. And the next verse he says, even if a man of most sinful conduct worships me with exclusive devotion, that means he's realized his mistakes, he's ready to change his life, he should be considered a saint for his rightly resolve. It does not mean that he's not going to pay for his past wrong things that he did. But from this day onwards, the Lord says, if he turns towards me, I am ready to bless him and guide him in the right way. So we come back again to verse number 9. Now, if you carry on asking these people, if there is no law of karma, then why are people taking birth? Because we say people take birth because they've got karmas to exhaust. So even for that, they have an answer. What is their viewpoint? They say, aparas paraha. Aparas paraha means there is no cause and effect. People are just taking birth. There is no cause and effect. We believe that people take birth because to exhaust past karmas. But these people say that there is birth taking place in this creation, but what is it due to? Sambhutam kama haitukam. It is driven by the lust of individuals. So because of the lust of individuals to procreate, that's why the population is increasing, not because they are karmas to settle. So for everything, they have an argument, whatever you say, because they totally don't believe at all in God, and they are so arrogant, they don't want to listen to anybody. So now, we go on to verse number 9. Now, it is not that these demoniacal people don't have an intellect. Every human being has an intellect. It's not that divine people have intellect, demoniacal people don't have intellect. But what is the difference? Because there are 3 types of intellect. This is mentioned clearly in chapter 18, if we go to verse 30, 31 and 32. There Krishna talks about the 3 different types of intellect. Sattvic intellect, Rajasic intellect and Tamasic intellect. So not just because you have an intellect that is okay, but there are 3 different types of intellect. So let us just look at verse 31, which is the Rajasic type of intellect. What is that? That by which one wrongly understands dharma and adharma, and what should be done and what should not be done, that understanding, Krishna says, is Rajasic. So having a lopsided view of the world. And not only that, but justifying things when they do wrong, they think they are doing right. What people are doing right, they say you are doing wrong. So it is a total lopsided understanding of the world. So they say because their understanding is lopsided, therefore Krishna says in verse number 9, avastabhya, they hold on. They are very stubborn. They stubbornly hold on to what? Etam drishtim. Etam drishti means this view that in this world there is no God, there is no punyam, papam, there is no karma, there is no heaven, there is no hell. They are very stubborn and they very proudly hold on to their views. And why, what has made them like this? Krishna gives the answer to us. Why are they like this? Why do they so stubbornly hold on to their views? He says they are nastat manaha. Nasta manaha means they are, what you call, they spend all their time and energy in the pursuit of sensual and material goods. So they have no time for scriptures, they have no time to go to temple, they are not at all interested. And alpa buddhaya, their minds are very weak. Alpa buddhaya, they are very easily overpowered by what? When their mind is weak, what are you easily overpowered by? Alpa buddhaya. What is it that overpowers these people's mind? Desires, exactly. In fact, so powerful are these desires that they take away our ability to think correctly. They drive us in the wrong direction. So he says, Alpa Buddhaya, they just follow their instincts, they follow their senses, and they cannot differentiate between right and wrong, good and bad, pure and impure. So what happens to such people also Krishna will explain later on in the verses. What is the outcome for such people who are driven by their desires and they don't use their intellect to lead their lives? So what happens to these people here? Also Krishna says that instead of doing actions to help society, to uplift society, to create harmony in society, what do? He uses the word ugra karmanaha. In the third line of the Sanskrit text, you see the word karmanaha means actions. What type of actions? Ugra, meaning very foul actions, cruel actions. They hurt people because they are intoxicated by their wealth, by their desires, by their power. So what do? They, what we call, cause chayaya jagata. They cause the destruction of this world. Now, what do we mean by this? You can see documentaries sometime, how people are driven by their greed, driven by their, what we call, they get carried away by wealth and possession. They show documentaries where people catch the sharks in the water. You know what they do with the sharks? They cut the fins of the sharks because the fin has got the value, and they throw the poor shark back in the water. What happens to the shark now? Without a fin, he can't even swim, and he's attacked by all other animals. And then there are people who go and hunt for these turtles, and they rip the shell out from the turtle. They throw the turtle away and they take the shell. So the turtle without the shell is totally defenseless. But because of that greed to sell that shell for money, people go to all kinds of lengths and to destroy things just for their own, what we call, for their wealth. And then also there are those who attack these rhinos and they cut off their, what do you call that? The tusk, right? The tusk or the horn. And the poor rhino is left to die because these people want just the horn to make money. So we see such type of demoniacal behavior in this world that causes destruction. People who destroy forests, trees, etc., all these cause massive destruction. So all this is nothing but driven by greed and what we call passion for money. And that's why the scriptures always tell us, they compare wealth with what we call fertilizer. I've told you this in class before. The saints and sages compare wealth with fertilizer. So what is that similarity between wealth and fertilizer? Fertilizer, when you spread it all over the field, it creates growth, it flourishes, crops can grow when fertilizer spread all over the field. But when you gather all the fertilizer and put it in one place, what happens? It gives a very foul smell. So what they are trying to tell us is, when you have money, if you take that money and share it with the world, share it with those who are less fortunate, there is total growth and harmony and stability in this world. But when you hoard wealth, it ends up polluting you, it ends up bringing your own downfall also. So these people are just driven to enrich themselves, and therefore they do all kinds of cruel acts that bring destruction in this world. And then Bhagwan goes on in the next verse to tell us more qualities of these demoniacal people. What is it that drives these people? And he mentions asritya, they are overpowered by kaman, desires. It is the desires that overpower our thinking capacity, our intellect. And what is the quality of desires? You must understand, the quality of desires he mentions here is duspuram. Duspura means insatiable. Nobody in this world can put up the hand and say, I've satisfied all my desires. It can never happen. That's why in the Mahabharata, desires are compared to putting ghee into a fire. The more you put ghee into a fire, the fire will never die. So that means the more and more you give in to desires, you actually make the desires more and more stronger. And in chapter 3, verse 37, Krishna already pointed to us what do desires do to us. So if you go back to chapter 3, verse 37, which is on page 75. This desire, born of the mode of passion or rajas, is anger, all devouring and most sinful. Know this to be the enemy here. So desire and anger actually go hand in hand. Desire and anger are like two twin brothers. What is the relationship between desire and anger? Sorry? Desire arises anger. When there is an obstacle to attaining your desires, there arises anger or depression or frustration, etc. Depending on the intensity of the desire, and if there's an interruption, will be the resultant intensity of anger. If it's a mild desire, you don't satisfy it, you're okay. But if it's an intense desire and it cannot be satisfied, there is intense anger also. So that's why, what is the difference between the reacting and thinking? There's a difference between the reacting and thinking. Reacting means what? You react without using your intellect. Whereas thinking is where you use your intellect, then act. So there's a little short story I read about this thing about interacting, just reacting. There was a man sitting in his apartment in a high floor. It was on the 40th floor, his apartment. So he's sitting there and he's reading quietly, he's reading his newspaper. Suddenly somebody bursts into his apartment and says, Mr. Verma, your daughter has ran away with my driver. Your daughter has run away with my driver. So what happens to this fellow reading the newspaper? He runs to the balcony and he jumps off the balcony. And as he's falling, when he reaches the 30th floor, he realizes he's not married. And then he keeps on falling and falling and falling to the 20th floor. He realizes he doesn't have a daughter. Not only is he not married, he doesn't have a daughter. And before he hits the ground, he realizes his name is not Verma, it is Sharma. So it is too late. So what is this? This tells us we react. We hear something, we react. But we don't think and act. So this is the reason again, is that many kind of qualities can overpower our intellect. It can be greed, it can be desire, it can be anger. And that's why anger is called temporary insanity. When anger overpowers you, at that time you can say anything wrong, you can do anything wrong. But when that anger subsides, then only you know that what you did was wrong. So anything can overpower us. That's why constantly we are asked to be vigilant against all these enemies also. And what is the nature of these Asuric people? Krishna goes on to tell us, Anvita, they are endowed with or they possess three qualities. One is Damba. Damba means vanity, Mana, pride, and Madaha, arrogance. So these are three qualities. Now they may look quite similar, okay, but there is a little bit difference in this. According to commentaries written on this verse, Damba is vanity at a physical level. That means they like to what we call excessive ostentation by showing off with branded clothing, watches, handbag, etc. So Damba is at the vanity at the physical level, always wanting to show off. Manaha is pride at the mental level, meaning always they consider themselves more superior than others. They look down upon other people. So mana is pride at the mental level. And madaha is at the speech level, using bombastic speech, using very fantastic words to glorify not others but to glorify themselves. So they're always boastful about themselves. And they constantly like to flaunt themselves about all their achievements and all this. So Damba, Mana, Madaha are the three qualities of these Asuric people. And now, what we call comes a bigger problem, because you have to maintain this high flying status. You see, once you attain this status, you have to maintain. You flaunt branded clothes, you flaunt branded watches, you talk very boastful about yourself. So, what is the next problem? The Lord says, these demoniac people, gritva. Gritva means they put effort. Now, if you put effort for goodness, for the goodness of others is okay. But what do they put effort towards? What is it that guides them? He says moha, delusion. What is delusion? How do you define delusion? Delusion is what is right you see as wrong, what is wrong you see as right. So delusion, moha means having a very lopsided view of the world. If you tell them you're going for Gita class, what do they say? You're wasting your time, unnecessary, you're wasting your time. Come with me, let's go and have coffee. Come with me to Coffee Bean. That is right. Coming to Coffee Bean is right, but going for Gita classes is wrong. You're wasting your time. So they are driven by moha, by delusion, guided by wrong ideas, wrong thinking. See, there's a very simple thing. Wrong knowledge leads to wrong desires, leads to wrong actions. Again, wrong knowledge leads to wrong desires, leads to wrong action. So if knowledge is defective, your actions are going to be defective. So he says, because of this moha, because of this lopsided understanding of things, he said, asad grahan. Asad grahan means their thoughts also are impure. Since their understanding of the world is impure, their thoughts also are impure. And therefore, he says, asad grahan vritaha asuchi vritaha. Suchi means pure. Asuchi means impure. Vritaha means actions. So they do impure actions. So impure knowledge leads to impure desires, leads to impure actions. And all this goes hand in hand because they want to satisfy all their desires also. Now, what is it that is driving these people? And Krishna explains this so beautifully in the next verse, number 11. So here he says, these Asuric people, they are upasritaha, they are hounded, they are beset by what? Chintan, worries. Worries about what? All these demoniac people, they have worries, but what are the worries about? you can condense all the worries into two things. What are the two aspects that they're worried about? One, whatever they have, they worry about how to hold on to it. So whatever money, position, title, whatever possessions they have, they are constantly worried how to hold on to it. You see, how do you know if you're attached to anything? We talk always about attachment, attachment. How do you know if you're attached to anything? Huh? You can't live without it. Okay, what else? You get upset when you lose it. What else? You can't live without it. You get upset when you lose it. But, sorry? You can't stop thinking about it. And therefore, even when you have not lost it, but even the fear of losing it also causes you distress also. If you're occupying a position of power and you're so attached to it, when you hear somebody is trying to even topple you from that also makes you upset also. So two things worry these demoniac people. One, how to hold on to what they have. And number two, how to get what they don't have. So these are what they are constantly worried about. Holding on to what we have and how to get what I don't have. When will I get it? How will I get it? So even the scriptures warn us. They say, when you have a desire and you have not attained it, are you happy? Supposing I have a desire for something, but I have not attained it yet. Am I happy? I am not happy because I have not attained it. So in pursuit, there is unhappiness. When I get it, am I happy? All are smiling already. When I get it, am I happy? For a while. And then why am I not happy again? Because there's something more better, right? There's something, I buy a new car, suddenly I see my neighbor has got a more expensive car. Now I'm not happy with my car. And when I lose it, I'm also not happy. So in pursuit is unhappiness. When you get it, there's unhappiness. When you actually lose it, also there's unhappiness. So all the way you have problem. So they say, but these people are always worried, chintan, about how to hold on to what they have and how to get what they don't have. So what happens now? If your worries are about one or two things, it's okay. It's not so much of a problem. But he says, these people's worries are aparimeyam, innumerable, uncountable, because their desires are so much, their worries also are so much. They are worried about the past, they are worried about the future. And in English, we have a very nice, the saying, they say, past tense, present tense, future also tense. Because at all levels of your life, you are tense, right? You heard about this, right? Past tense, present tense, future tense. And this is the nature of this, what we call demonic people. So it is the desires that agitate our mind. And you have to pursue these desires because to reduce the agitation in your mind. And not only when you are awake, these desires trouble you. There are people who go to sleep and dream also about these desires. I want this, I want that, I'm living in a nice house, all this. So desires also go on. And there was a joke told about this man who used to sleep every night. When he goes to sleep, he's got so many desires. So the minute he falls asleep, he dreams that so much of money is raining on him. So much of money everywhere, money raining down. And then he chases after this money. But before he can grab this money, strong wind comes and blows away all the money. So he wakes up, he's very frustrated. Next day he goes to sleep. Again he dreams about all his money, and he runs after it. Again the wind comes, blows it away. So he's so disturbed, he can't sleep anymore. He goes to see a Swamiji. So he tells the Swamiji, please, I cannot stand this anymore. I'm chasing after the money, I can't get it. Please tell me the solution. The Swamiji says, I will give you a mantra that this dream will not come again. And the man gets very angry. He says, no, I don't want such kind of mantra. Then what do you want? He says, give me a mantra that in my dream, I'm able to grab this money also. Even in my dream, I don't want to let go of the money. So it is not only at the waking stage, but even at the dream stage also. And do you think your desires end here? While you're awake, you are hankered by these desires. You're dreaming of desires. And what happens when this life comes to an end? Have the desires gone? What happens to these desires? Huh? You carry forward to your next life. How do we know this? How do we know this? Chapter 8, verse 6. It's mentioned there in the Gita. If you go back to chapter 8, verse 6. Chapter 8, verse 6, page 152. There Krishna mentions. Chapter 8, in fact, deals with death. O son of Kunti, that is Arjuna, at time of death, whosoever or whatsoever the person thinks of, that alone he attains for being ever absorbed in that thought. So if you're unable to fulfill that desires in this life, you're going to carry on into the next life also, right? So the nature of the mind is constantly demanding more and more. So here Krishna mentions what is it that drives these people? Kama, Upabhoga, Parama. What is their highest goal? Parama, their highest goal is Kama, which is satisfying desires, and Bhoga, to seek pleasures. So all the while they are driven by this Kama and Bhoga. And they are convinced, the problem is that they are convinced that the purpose of this life is only to satisfy desires, to eat, drink, and be merry. And that's why Adi Shankaracharya very beautifully tells us in Viveka Chudamani. He says, the three most difficult things for us to attain in this life. Number one is the human birth. If you have attained this human birth, it is because of so much of effort you put to attain this human birth. And when we attain this human birth, what do? We behave like animals. We don't understand the value of human birth. And the second most difficult thing to obtain in life is the what we call a living guru in your life. And the third most difficult thing to attain in this life, what he calls mumukshutva, means desire for moksha. So if you have the human birth, if you have a living guru, and you have this desire for moksha, that is the most fantastic combination that you can have. But these people are convinced that the only purpose of human birth is to eat, drink, and be merry. So there is in the scriptures also told that we all start our life in three different stages. Normally in the first stage of our life, we are called animal men. You know what is an animal man? What is an animal man? Huh? Sorry? So the desires are only for Kama and Artha. That is what is called animal man. We are born, we are normally in the early part of life, we pursue this. But the scriptures say from animal man, we must go to man. What is man? Animal man, my goal is Kama and Artha. Man is what? I add in dharma. Okay, I add in dharma. I value dharma. So I live in a righteous way. So there's nothing wrong to pursue your desires as long as they are legitimate desires. And I earn money in the legitimate way. I spend money in the legitimate way. So man means I add dharma. And then finally I come to God man, which means I value moksha. So that is how we must progress. But for these Asuric people, there is only Kama and Bhoga. That is the only thing that they value in this life. And then that brings us to verse number 12, where more qualities of these demoniac people are given here. So here in verse number 12, Krishna says about the nature of these demoniac people. Asa pasa. You see the word there? Asa pasa. Again, asa means hope or expectations for the future. So they are constantly worried about the future. And pasa is how to hold on to whatever we possess. So either their mind is there in the future or to hang on to whatever they possess. Okay. But a spiritual seeker is one who has surrendered to the Lord. He doesn't worry about the future. He surrenders that to the Lord. He doesn't worry whatever he has, whether he loses it, he also surrenders it to the hands of the Lord. So he accepts whatever positive or negative that happens in his life. Okay. But the Asuric person always is worried about this asa pasa, how to satisfy desires and how to hold on to whatever he has. And Krishna says on top of that, that these are not just a few desires that these demoniac people have, but he says they are satir. He uses the word satir. Satir means hundreds and hundreds of desires. There are multiple desires. Now, so what is the best test for you to know now whether you are an asura or you are a deva? This tells us now what is the best test. How can we evaluate whether we are divine or demoniac? Here he's telling us, he's giving us the key. We can self-assess ourselves how to know whether we are divine or whether we are demoniac. You take a piece of paper, you write down all the desires that you have not fulfilled yet. What are the things that you want? The longer the list is, means what? Then are you divine or demoniac? I leave that to you to decide. So you make a list of all the desires that you have not fulfilled yet, number one, and you make a list of everything that you're attached to, that you cannot live without. The longer your list grows means the more your mind is occupied. That's why the scriptures tell us about simple living. Simple living means the least possessions you have, the least worries your mind has. The more possessions you have, I got land, property, who is it that enjoys? Rich people buy properties all over the world. 20, 30 properties they have. But who is really enjoying all these properties? Huh? Who is enjoying all these properties? You think they can live in all the properties? The servants who are looking after the properties, they are enjoying all the properties. They are enjoying the luxury of all the properties. So here he says, satir, they are in hundreds, their desires. And life is limited or unlimited? Life is limited. Desires are unlimited. So ultimately, what's going to happen? When you have so many desires, your life is limited. What is going to happen? You cannot satisfy all these desires. So what he says, kama krodha para ayanaha. Para ayanaha means these asuric people are fully absorbed in kama or krodha, either desires or anger. Desires fulfill, is it good or bad? What do the scriptures say? When all your desires are, you are able to fulfill all your desires, is that good or bad? Is it good or bad? Huh? Good. Scriptures tell us the more you fulfill your desires, I said, is what? Like putting ghee into a fire. So it leads to greed, leads to more and more and more. And unfulfilled desires lead to krodha. So fulfilled desires lead to lobha, which is greed. Unfulfilled desires lead to krodha. So he says here, kama krodha parayanaha. Their only direction, their only fulfillment is, their only what we call involvement is either in kama or krodha. So as long as this kama and krodha are what we call driving us, what will be the outcome of actions of these asuric people? So we will stop here and come back next week and look at the further qualities of these asuric people. We end our session here with the